Hello, let's talk about dying. This is part 2 of my talk. In part 1, we established that our consciousness can certainly separate from the body and function perfectly well. But we were no closer to understanding what dying actually feels like. The near-death experience seemed to offer some hope, but the clue is in the name. These survivors didn't actually die. What is actually happening here then? Our medical theory is that the psychoactive substance DMT, dimethyltryptamine, is released by the pineal gland, which is not brain tissue, so it's not affected by a loss of oxygen supply to the brain. This gland is close to the emotional, visual, and auditory centers of the brain, and DMT can yield psychoactive effects extremely similar to the NDE, bright lights, peaceful otherworldly feelings, and sometimes fear. It's also thought to influence our dreams, especially lucid ones. The NDE reports seem pretty similar to these. The very good news, though, is that essential life in survivors of so-called clinical death has clearly not ceased. So these experiences are surely evidence that consciousness does not depend upon the brain. This supports the belief that we will survive our physical death. Where else can we look for knowledge about the dying experience? Well, there's a huge number of anecdotal accounts from spiritual mediums who seem to be able to communicate with the departed and pass on quite evidential messages at times. Almost none of these, though, describe what it was like actually to die. Typically, all we get is along the lines of, I went to sleep and woke up to find my family waiting for me. Well, here's an alternative account. For all our differences and tribulations, I had a very close emotional and psychic connection with my own mother. I knew through precognitive dreams when she was going to die, well before the first of her 2 strokes. So I was able to keep a vigil by her bedside, holding her hand and talking to her until the final breath. 3 nights later, I was rewarded with a powerful lucid dream, in which not only did she appear smiling, clearly very much alive, she also showed me what her experience of dying felt like. And I also felt it, vividly and in detail, before, thankfully, waking up, suddenly alert and excited. I've used and developed this experience in my novel, The Unbroken. It's a story of deep love and an adventure through mysterious worlds. Our heroine, Eva, has left the physical world and finds herself, well, let's get her to tell us in this short extract.
In the beginning, there was nothing. It is the strangest thing imaginable, being aware of nothing. There was no ground, no surrounding, neither ceiling nor sky. Nothing above, beside or below. Even I was not there. Though I was aware of nothing, I was not. Can you conceive this? You may experience this yourself someday, and when you think about it, you may be afraid. But I can tell you that there will be no fear, nor pain, because you will not be. Yet I can say that it was beautiful. Yes, nothing has real beauty. Very, very gradually, I moved from nothing into something, as if I were gradually becoming accustomed to the place. A kind of outline of my body emerged. There were, too numerous to count, incredibly thin filaments, like strands of a spider web, streaming out from this body, sparkling in places along their length. I sensed them, and I sensed surprise, especially as a few began to detach themselves and float away to be lost beyond me, dissipating. Where have they gone? I felt myself asking, rather than the more obvious, What are they? And with that thought, probably my first thought in this new world, my surroundings were created as the darkness began to lift, like the vague shadows of trees and beasts in a valley below a mountain beyond which the morning sun has yet to rise. The silence, too, gave way to the soft murmurings of a gentle, cool breeze. Whatever I was becoming began to move, and so did the shadows around me. Some of them faded away whilst others floated towards me, even looming up before me like great beasts, inspecting this interloper to their kingdom. Yes, a few of them even seemed to have intelligence of a kind. But there was no threat, no fear, and one by one they drifted away into the twilight, apparently satisfied. Far, far ahead there must have been a light, and the mist was beginning to glow with the pure white of newly fallen snow. It was becoming more and more like the softest snow, gently moist and decidedly colder until it billowed into cumulus. I wanted that light. I had to reach it, but now I was exhausted by everything, by the nothing, by not being and becoming, by the effort of thought. I gave up and simply allowed myself to fall into the cloud. Oh, that moment, if it was a moment, was beautiful beyond description, like settling back into the softest imaginable mattress at the end of a hard day, and continuing to fall and to fall and to fall.
We do not then wake up abruptly as though nothing has happened and find ourselves in a bright new world of verdant pastures and smiling relatives. There is a process, a gradual letting go of our past self, during which the mind must readjust to new, non-physical surroundings. At first, there's nothing for it to relate to, even though the soul is aware and senses the beauty of that nothingness. As thought begins to return, this new world becomes more visible, yet the mind is still struggling, and images from the depths of our subconscious, the shadow, may appear, but they're harmless. And all the while there is an impulse beyond our control, drawing us forward to the afterlife. Yes, there is a light, because we have left behind the contrasts of the physical world. And we will reach for the light, falling gently and effortlessly into it. Dying is nothing to be afraid of.